Welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Megan Kearns. I'm a contributing writer to Edge Media Network and a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies occasionally for Salt Lake City Weekly, and I am too a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
And my name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living.
Yeah, you are.
Yes, he is.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, this week, as every week, we have some movies we're going to be talking about. And this week's movies are Honest Thief, The Mortuary Collection, Nocturne, and Evil Eye. So let's get this party started with The Mortuary Collection.
Ooh, ooh.
Oh.
Are you booing the movie or my choice that we're going to start with this first?
No, I was booing the movie.
That good,
Yeah.
huh? So I did not see it, so you guys are going to have to tell me as well as all of the listeners about it.
Well, I will say it's not a boo. It's just not very good. Anthologies are hard.
They are.
This anthology was written and directed. All of the stories in it and the wraparound were written and directed by the same person. So you would think there would be a little more coherence between stories.
I would think that.
You would
and
think.
they even, and it's, and it's almost like they knew that what they were doing wasn't very good or original, because in the wraparound story, the two characters in it, Clancy Brown being this, he's not a crypt keeper. I guess we'll call him the Undertaker.
He's a mortician.
Mortician, Undertaker, same difference. And then this woman who's come in for a funeral, she's like, "Oh yeah, I get it. Story, somebody does something bad, and something bad happens to him in exchange, blah blah."
Yeah. Well,
It's
she's
like, yes.
she's actually there about the help wanted sign. And the wraparound story is basically him taking her on a tour of the mortuary and explaining all the different areas that she would work in while he's telling the stories about people that he has come across who've died under crazy circumstances, basically.
Okay, so this sounds cool, like for a setup story.
Yeah.
It does sound cool.
Yeah.
It does. And honestly, I was really liking this movie until maybe about halfway to 3/4 through the movie. And then it just, for me, I don't think I've ever soured on a movie as hard as I did.
Whoa.
Because
Oh, what was the point where you soured?
it totally just lost consistency in terms of the types of stories. And also, I just feel like the last two stories and the end to the wraparound story were just horrible. They just weren't good.
Yeah, well, the wraparound story, you once you know what you're in for in the So here's the deal, Megan. The wraparound story begins with the funeral for a little boy who's like, I don't know how old he is, 6 years old, something like that. And he has been killed by a serial killer who they call the dentist, because the serial killer takes a tooth from each victim. This person only kills children because this person kills and cooks them and eats them. It's delightful.
Yummy.
So and so by the time you get to that story, that's the last story. And as it turns out, the woman who's come in for the help wanted, she is the dentist, and she has come in. She didn't get this kid's tooth, and so she's come in to get one of his teeth, which she tells Clancy Brown, and then she stabs him, and then he's like, "Ooh, I got a surprise for you. Now you're going to be the new crypt keeper," or whatever the fuck, mortician.
Yeah.
Because all of the dead children come out of, they go into the library where all the stories of the dead are kept, and all of the stories of the dead children, the books fall on the floor, and then the burned children come out and basically eat her to death.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then the mortician, and the one really good touch I thought was one of the kids picks up his or her tooth and puts it back in his mouth. That's the only thing that I thought, oh, that's kind of clever. Everything else I was like, eh.
Yeah.
And then she wakes up, basically undead on the slab, having the mortician has sewn her together, and he's left. And for some reason, he dies in the sunlight. He just goes poof and dies, which doesn't make any sense to me.
Is he a vampire? I'm confused.
No,
Yeah,
I.
they don't really explain that, and I don't think it's honestly that important. I
Oh.
like Clancy Brown in this movie, and I think he's
Yeah.
just chewing the shit out of the scenery the entire time. But there are some pretty funny lines of dialogue that he has that I think he makes work because he's Clancy Brown and he's entertaining.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So I like him in this movie.
Yeah, he's fine. What were the other stories? There's the one where the creepy like fraternity guy.
Oh, that's amazing.
Bone.
That story
That's
is
a good story.
That story is amazing. Megan, you would like the story. I think it's
Ooh.
amazing.
Okay.
And I
However,
wish all the stories were as good as this.
You can see the ending coming on this one too, though.
For sure.
I mean, these are all really predictable, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and Sam, the character, the woman who's there, she, calls that out several times about stories being kind of predictable or dumb or whatever. Yeah.
Well, no, it's not cool because then you can tell a predictable story and one of the characters in the movie can go like, "Oh, but that's so predictable." And then it's like, "Haha, we got away with it." I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
if something's self-aware, I'm a little okay with it. But I hear you. Why not just tell a story that's not predictable?
Well, Evan, why don't you tell the story of the fraternity?
Oh my God, the frat story
is fun.
It's amazing. So it's about this guy who you find out that when he was younger, he was overweight and people made fun of him, and then he grew up and got all buff and then be turned into this guy who was just a total asshole, just lying to women to have sex with them. And they don't say the exact year, but it's basically like late 50s, maybe early 60s college life. And so
this is another thing that's weird about this movie. I'm sorry to jump in on you, but everything about the movie is contemporary except the production design.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
It has a very
production
retro.
design.
That's interesting because it says on Wikipedia in the summary that every single story is set in a different decade. So it's the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s.
It sure doesn't feel like that.
Well,
it all felt like
the props feel of pretty much the same era. Anytime someone's watching a TV, it's an old timey TV.
Yeah, like a big CRT TV that was a piece of furniture. It was so big.
I remember those.
But anyway, Evan, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Yeah. So what's great about this story is this guy is a total fucking sleazebag, and he meets this girl who he thinks is going to be his next mark because he's trying to sleep with 67 women to get some stupid honor in his fraternity. And so what happens is she tells him to put a condom on. He gripes about putting it on. Then he tells her to turn around and he takes it off.
Ew.
And then they have sex all night. Then he wakes up. He has a horrible, horrible growing rash on his body. And he finds out that he is pregnant with her demon spawn or whatever. And he has to give birth to it. And it's goopy and gross and gory. And it's just the perfect comeuppance for this kind of character. And I think it's also really important for men to watch this and see this and see the, it's played as horror, the horrors of being pregnant and childbirth in this situation, but like fucking grow some empathy.
Well, I was going to say, yes, it sounds like all of that, but also, I mean, that's rape. Like if you're taking a condom off and that, and someone's not consenting, that's rape. So he should have horrible things happen to him as a punishment just for that alone.
Yeah.
Well, he dies when the baby explodes out his penis.
Yes.
Which is,
Oh, that's amazing.
Because he finds out where she lives and he goes over to her house and her parents are like, "Oh my God, you did it again." Whatever her name is.
Yeah. There's
it turns out they have an
attic full of these
there's
babies.
a whole room
full of these babies.
Which I think is I think personally that's the vignette goes on for just one moment too long. I didn't need to see the attic full of the babies. I knew that they were already there. I think they should have just ended with him giving birth and dying. I thought that would have been the perfect end.
Yeah. So
that sounds good.
So that's that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was it's fine. But then the next story is this the one where the wife is in like a comatose state?
She's catatonic and the doctor helps this like tired husband who's tired of caring for his wife basically kill her with pills, but then she snaps out of her
lives somehow?
I don't know, she snaps out of being catatonic after he gives her the poison or the pills, essentially. And then it's just a series of situations where he has to keep killing her over and over. I think that's where the movie turned me, because it was in a situation where it just, I don't know, I didn't like the story. I thought it was a shitty story to have this guy who's at his wit's end, and then like he initially thinks he's doing something like putting his wife out of her misery, and then it turns into this weird fucking horror I don't know, it just didn't work for me. And then it just devolved.
And it was also kind of cruel,
Yeah.
It was just like, it was cruel to her in its own way. It was cruel to him, and it just seemed mean spirited to me.
Right.
The second story, like the first one is kind of like, ha ha, but there's a moral to this one. The second one is just kind of like gross,
Mm-hmm.
And then the third one is, the babysitter serial killer thing. And they play on, this is another thing where they sort of play on, gender stereotypes, because the serial killer is the woman and the babysitter's a guy. And you're supposed to think that the guy is trying to kill this kid, but it's actually her.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even remember how he ends up with the head wound in the living room when you realize that there's somebody else in the house. Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
Yeah, she just walks in, she's watching, she's making dinner, which you realize later she's baking this kid. She's making dinner, she's watching a horror movie where like the same beats in her story are playing out in the horror movie,
Mm-hmm.
which is sort of clever.
Yeah.
But then this guy shows up, and there's an escaped mental patient, and this guy shows up and he's got a head wound, and it's just like, where did this guy come from? And because he's, you're supposed to think that he is the escaped mental patient, it sort of makes sense. But because he turns out to be the babysitter, it actually doesn't make any sense, because she must have like whacked him in the head or something and stuck him somewhere. And then he came back, and it's like, well, how are we supposed to, if you think about this rationally from how the story actually is, it doesn't make any sense why he would end up there. And also they killed children, which is just fucking awful.
Yeah. So there were elements of this movie that I really liked. I enjoyed it being very stylized. I liked the first couple of tales in the anthology, and then it just totally lost me. Completely soured me for the rest of the movie.
That's so interesting, because I was reading that the final one, the fourth one, the babysitter murders, was based on a short that Ryan Spindle, who directed it, did. And so that's interesting that that one didn't work.
Mm-hmm. That's what's showing on the TV. The one that's going the beat for beat thing is his short.
Oh, interesting. All right. Do you guys have anything else that you want to say? Like why it didn't work, or just didn't?
Well, the pacing is bad. It needed a better editor. But I think that also the second story in particular, it's just, this is I don't give a shit about this kind. It's just gross, and it takes forever, and it doesn't make any sense really. It's just, it's just really, really unpleasant.
All right.
So
no, anyway. I'm fascinated, because this has gotten like such good reviews. So I'm really intrigued.
I'd say it's 1/3 of a good movie.
All right.
Even though there are 4 stories.
For me, it's more like maybe like half of a good movie.
All right. Well, let's then talk about Nocturne, which is one of the latest films in Amazon's Welcome to the Blumhouse series. And this film is written and directed by Zoo Quirk, and is about 2 twins who are competing in an elite art academy for a concerto piano solo, because they're pianists. So, Evan, you and I saw this, so let's talk about it.
Yeah, I literally just saw this.
What did you think?
I dug it. I enjoyed this movie. I found it to be just extremely unsettling, very psychological. I thought did a really good job of playing with reality and making you question the things that you're seeing at every turn, right down to the end for me. With just the way the whole end, it kept me guessing as to what actually happened until the very, very end. It's like, what is reality? What's real? What's happening? I don't know. And yeah, I think it does a good job of, capturing the rivalry that happens in these kinds of schools, but also between siblings, especially twins. I think that aspect of the film was really well done. The rivalry between sisters, and how, as one who's been on top of the world starts to fall on bad times, and seeing the other sibling on an upswing. I think that
Mhm.
was just a really interesting dynamic. But what about you? What'd you think?
Yeah, there were definitely things I liked about this. I thought that Sydney Sweeney, who plays the protagonist, is fantastic in this. I thought she was so good, and I've liked her in pretty much everything I've seen her in, from Euphoria to the film Clementine. She's always really good, but she's really, really good in this. And for me, she's the reason to watch this. And yeah, I also agree with you about the sibling rivalry and just the rivalry in general. And I am kind of partial to films that focus on the grueling practice and sacrifice you have to endure in order to achieve as close to perfection as you're going to get for art. And this, in a way, kept reminding
Mhm.
me of Black Swan and The Perfection. Those films I enjoyed more, but they did keep reminding me of it. And yeah, I really like the way it plays with reality, and how her character, gets Moira, as the student who dies right in the beginning, gets her notebook, and there are drawings in it, and the drawings are kind of prophetic, or they seem to be, and they're kind of coming to life. And we keep seeing like this yellow light that she's bathed in, which is kind of like this mystical sun, like the spotlight
Mhm.
shining on her, and that's kind of cool. um
Yeah.
yeah, and I really do like that you're not sure whether she's hallucinating or whether this is really supernatural, or is she coming, is she becoming unraveled, like who knows. Yeah, and I like that. I think for me, what didn't work, which is my issue with all of the films in the Blumhouse series, this particular series, is they need bigger budgets, and they need better production values, and they need better special effects. And for me, that was the biggest problem here, is that it needed better special effects, and in lighting and cinematography, in order to really hit home on this. And so because that was lacking, it kind of kept taking me out of it.
Maybe it's just I just watched it, so I haven't had time to like process as much of it.
Or you may just like it more
I
than
don't
me.
think I don't think the production for me, in terms of production value, bothered me that much. I'm just trying to think of things that I didn't like, but it's hard sometimes when you literally just watch something.
Well, I mean,
For
yeah, I mean,
me,
you don't
usually,
have to think about something you didn't like, you know what I mean? Like, you could have just really liked this.
yeah.
Like I said, I really loved Sydney Sweeney's performance. I think that's fantastic. And I thought this is an interesting story, but there are just elements that for me didn't really work. So, but there are things that did.
hmm I think one of the things that really depressed me was seeing toward the end, where Juliet, the main character, she's gearing up for her big recital finally, to perform the concerto,
Mhm.
and her sister Vi comes in to the dressing room 10 minutes before and totally fucking psychs her out, and that just made me so angry, because then Juliet goes out and like can't play, and then she goes and jumps off the roof and kills herself. And I was just so angry.
Yikes!
I was so angry that she let her sister get inside her head after all of this insanity, like all of the practice, all of the things that she's done to get as good and even surpass her sister, to
Mhm.
then just waste it and go out and jump off the roof. And so the movie does a thing, Dave, where you see her on the edge of the roof thinking about jumping, and then she comes to having finished playing, and she's gets up and takes a bow and gets this standing ovation, and it's amazing. And I thought, oh well, maybe she didn't kill herself, maybe she imagined all that. No, the
Nope.
next thing you see is she's impaled on this student sculpture that was that she was looking at before she jumped off the roof. And I think
Wow.
what's kind of amazing about that is she's laying there on the statue, impaled, dying, and no one around her notices.
Yes.
Everyone is just walking around, going about their day, and they have no idea that she's laying there dying / dead.
Yeah, but she's smiling with like a
Hmm.
dead, bloody grin on her face, which is exactly what she saw in her hallucination, vision, whatever it was, Moira, the student before, like had part of her head missing and like had this bloody smile. And yeah, it's so creepy. Yeah,
Good
it's creepy,
Lord.
but it's also really, it is really making an interesting commentary on the transience of art and performances, especially. And like, there's an interesting conversation that happens at dinner between their parents and Julia and her sister, and then their teacher, and who's a creep, as we find out.
Oh,
It-
totally.
yeah, he's a total skis. But yeah, there's a really interesting conversation where the mother is like, yeah, this is great that they're doing all this, but who really listens to classical music? Like, how much of an impact can they really have? And the teacher really goes in hard defending classical music, and saying there'll always be artists and there'll always be people seeking art, and that's true. But it is really kind of an interesting, in a way, parallel to then going to the very end of the film where you're right, nobody's noticing her, nobody misses her, nobody is like running out after her to check if she's okay, like nobody finds her. Yeah, so it's just kind of like,
Mhm.
yeah, it's kind of like, oh, this is so great, all this art and all this sacrifice, but what's it for? Which is not an opinion I agree with art-wise at all, but it is an interesting perspective to see on screen in an artistic medium like film. Like it's interesting. So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it also speaks to the fleeting nature of, even within the context of this school, how the gifted students, I'm putting gifted in quotes, are noticed. Because
yes.
people could give a shit about Juliet before this, and the only reason people start to notice her is because she starts making these bold, aggressive moves and going outside the box. And then bad things happen to Vi, her sister, and then so people notice her. But as soon as she as soon as she fucks up, then they've basically just forgotten about her again.
It is also interesting too, thinking of that and kind of piggybacking off of that she's not really noticed until she chooses a different kind of unique piece to audition with, because she's going to do Mozart because that's what she's always done. And, it's kind of a quote unquote safe choice according to her, teacher mentor. And because, she only belongs in the core, she doesn't belong, being in the spotlight. But then she does the same choice that, V does, and, which is a more unusual choice. And that's what gets her noticed too. And also potentially, arguably, her really fast hands, which could be supernaturally gifted because of the possessed notebook, magic notebook, not sure.
Yeah, I liked how they would show her fingers periodically
Yes.
working as if they were at a piano, even though she's there taking a test, or she's got her hand up against the wall and she's looking over. I thought that was a nice touch.
I did too. I thought that was a really, really great touch. And I don't know why, because I'm not super into religiosity, but there was something I found an interesting kind of compelling description that the creepy teacher says about when he says that she's really great and she's actually better than her sister, and he's like, you're better in so many ways, but why do you not get the attention? And he's like, your sister is playing like the devil's at the door. And she's like, well, what about Moira? And he's like, well, she played like the devil was in the room. And I'm like, that's like interesting, thinking about what does set an artist apart. Like if someone's technically better, but they're maybe not as revered or not as, intriguing, charismatic, whatever you want to call it. It is the interesting thinking about what sets artists apart and makes them stand out. And I kind of like,
for sure.
Yeah, and I like that this film is exploring that in this kind of, creepy, eerie setting.
Me too. I dig that. The other conversation she has with the teacher at his house is also pretty devastating.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
She needles him with some insults, and then he basically says to her that she'll never amount to anything because she had her, if she was gonna make it big and she was gonna be known, she's already missed her chance, because anybody who was truly worth their salt didn't go to a conservatory and made it on their own as a child prodigy or something.
Yes.
Essentially.
Yeah, but I love that she like
Ooh.
retorts to him, like says the guy who, got the award, like the second place award or whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love that she throws his conducting baton into the fire.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really fascinating to watch how as she goes along in this, as she goes along progressing through the Notebook, progressing in the film, she becomes bolder and bolder and, speaks out more, defends herself more. And it also, something else too, is thinking about her sister. Like, it's something that bothered me that her sister did. Her sister blames her for her injury because she falls off that like little cliff and she's like, you didn't call out to me to warn me. And it's like she didn't even know. Like, she was mesmerized by the yellow light sun thing that she was seeing. And yet her sister blames her, and like her sister's like such an asshole. Like, she's really terrible.
Yeah, I was thinking that the whole time. Her sister's just a complete asshole to her. Always looking down on her, always treating her like a second-class citizen. It's just I mean, that's why it made me so angry at the end when her sister's able to get inside her head, because I felt like it would have been amazing if she went out there and then after her sister tried to fuck with her and said,
Yeah.
I dedicate this to my sister, and then just like plays the most amazing, concert of all time.
Right. But hadn't she already burned the Notebook?
She had, yeah.
Yeah. See, I don't know if we're buying into the whole, magic of it, she wouldn't have been able to do it anyway, arguably. So
Yeah.
But yeah, because when she jams her hands into the boiling water, like every other time she'd been fine, and then she scalds herself. So,
Yikes.
it's kind of gross.
It sounds like it.
Do we have any other thoughts you want to share on that?
No, I think we covered it.
All right. Well, let's talk about our third film then, which is the Liam Neeson film, Honest Thief.
Or, as we would say on Spoiler Piece, Honest Thief.
Yes. To catch a thief. The honest thief. Michael Mann, thief.
Michael Mann, thief. Nice.
Yeah. Megan, what did you think of Honest Thief?
Well, so to start off, I was kind of interested to see this, because I love Ozark, the TV show, and Mark Williams co-wrote this, directed this, and he's the co-creator of Ozark. And Liam Neeson is often fun. So I was thinking maybe this will be, kind of a Taken type of thing. And yeah, I did not like this at all. Except, yeah. So Liam Neeson is a bank robber, and he's pretty much he's stops bank robbing in the very beginning of the film because he meets the lovely and delightful Kate Walsh, and who is always great. And she's even great in this too. And they start a relationship, and, fast forward a year later or 2 years later, or however many years later, and he wants to move in, and he's, reformed, but he's going to turn himself in because he can't live with the guilt that he robbed banks.
So dumb. It's like, you got away with
just
it,
let
man.
it lie.
I know.
So
Honest Thief. More like Stupid Thief.
I know. What an idiot. God. I only saw 5 minutes of this movie.
Oh, hello.
Because the screener wouldn't cooperate. But I was able to see long enough for him to go to the storage place and sight unseen just say he's going to take a medium-sized storage unit. Without asking the dimensions or anything. And I thought, who the hell is this guy?
Maybe he already did his research and he knew what the dimensions were.
Who is this fucking guy? Jesus. Yeah.
But yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, and we should also talk about that it is set in Boston, although it's not filmed in Boston. It's filmed in Worcester.
Okay.
Who gives a shit?
I do, because I hate when things are not accurate when it's Boston related. I do.
Though, sometimes people shoot movies in Boston and they're still not accurate, like the car chase in the town
that drives
in the
me
North
nuts, but
End.
yes, you're right.
Yeah. But the Honest Thief, it's just, there's so much first of all, you got what's the Terminator 2? What's
Oh,
the Terminator's
fuck.
name? The Liquid Terminator.
Yes,
Robert
Robert
Patrick.
Patrick,
Is
yes.
that his
Yeah,
name?
Robert Patrick.
Robert Patrick and Jeffrey Donovan?
Yep.
Question mark.
Yep.
Yeah, from Burn Notice. There are these two FBI guys, older, who have accents that come and go, and then you have Jai Courtney and some other dude who are like the junior agents.
Enough said.
Oh, Anthony Ramos. Yeah, who actually is great in
Yes.
Hamilton. So he can be good, but yeah, Jai Courtney just wrecks everything.
Yeah, so Liam Neeson's going to turn himself in. What do they call him? It's not
Yes,
the
it
In-N-Out
is.
Bandit.
Yes, it is. And he's
Oh, it
mad
is.
at that. He's
Yeah.
like, I resent that. Don't call me that. That's an amateur.
Yeah. Because what he does is he like rents a store. It's actually just like right out of the bank job. He rents a place next door. He tunnels through the wall over a 3-day weekend and then plasters the wall closed. So he goes through a wall instead of under the floor, but the same idea.
Yes.
And he takes all this money and he's like $9 million or
that's
whatever it is. He's going to turn himself in for Kate Walsh. And here's what you should have done, Liam Neeson. You should have said, "Hey, Kate Walsh, I robbed banks forever. Never killed anyone, never slapped anybody upside the head, nothing, no deaths. I just have this money." And then she'd be like, bullshit. And he'd be like, "Check unit 175. And then she'd find the money. And he'd be like, "I'm going to turn myself in." She'd be like, "No, you won't. We're going to buy this house with cash. Are you fucking stupid?" And that's what you wish would happen. But instead, he turns himself in, and Jai Courtney and Anthony
Ramos.
Remind me again. Ramos, thank you. Jai Courtney's like, "We're going to kill him and take the money." And Anthony Ramos is like, "We're not going to do that." And then he goes along with it. But of course, he feels guilty about it. And then Jai Courtney kills Robert Patrick and tries to pin it on Liam Neeson. But then Liam Neeson grabs Jai Courtney and throws him out a window. But Jai Courtney pulls him out too. So they fall to the ground. And then they just get up like nothing happened. Like they didn't crash through glass. And then hit like, the cement berm on the way down and then land on the sidewalk. And Liam Neeson is nearly 70 years old. So I'm sure that would have had an effect on his body. And then Kate Walsh sees all of this and she's like, "Well, why don't you tell me why you did that? I'm not going to leave you just yet." What? So the whole movie is about Liam Neeson trying to outsmart Jai Courtney and Anthony Ramos, and he finally gets Anthony Ramos on his side. And Kate Walsh goes to the place where she works because she saw the two FBI guys on the video camera at the storage place. So she gets the card, whatever they call those cards. I'm an old person. But Jai Courtney catches her and like beats the shit out of her.
Which is
and
disturbing.
Liam Neeson finds her and takes her to. Yeah, it really
it's
is.
unnecessary.
Takes her to the hospital, and then they escape, and then there's blah, blah, and then Jeffrey Donovan's like, "I'll help you, Liam Neeson," in one of the scenes where I still have an accent. And then everything, and then Bob's your uncle.
I have to say about Jeffrey Donovan's accent, so he's from Amesbury originally, and I do think it's interesting that his accent kind of comes and goes, but what I really appreciated about his accent is that it's a very subtle Boston accent, because way too often people have a Boston accent and it's so forced and extra syllables, and it's like, no. A Boston accent is lazy. It's less syllables. It's less work. Do it softer. So anyway, I do appreciate that, even if it's not super consistent. And I also actually like him in this, and I really liked his little dog.
Yeah. He's got kind of a backstory that is a little interesting. Frankly, I would have liked to see this guy's movie. See him work a case.
I agree. Yeah. I feel like between him and Kate Walsh, like they're almost in a different movie. Like they're trying to kind of imbue their characters with some depth and, have a little more oomph to them.
Kate Walsh is definitely in a different movie.
Kate Walsh deserved a different movie.
She's like in a romantic comedy that has hints of drama, not some weird action movie.
You're so right. It's so weird, and I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I kept
anyway
with this film. I kept wanting it to be worse, so it would be funnier, or a lot better, and it just kind of treads this weird middle ground, this weird terrain that just doesn't quite stick the landing either way.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just kind of adequate most of the time. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just kind of there doing its thing.
Right.
Like some of the stunt work is pretty good,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But some of it's ridiculous, like the fall out of the second floor. I mean, I don't care who you are. That's going to hurt, man. That's 12 feet, especially when you got another guy and broken glass on top of you.
Absolutely.
You
yeah.
know?
And it is, I know I keep coming back to this, but it's hard not to compare in someone's work when you're familiar with it. But it's really interesting to me that thinking about Ozark, which is so detailed about money laundering and how they got a consultant in, who, is an expert on money laundering, who, so they could get the details right. And it's like the bank robbing part, which could have been really interesting to get into those details. It's so basic and just kind of glossed over in a very quick exposition. And it's just like, oh, that's kind of a bummer. So you're not even like, you're kind of known for details and you're not even, delivering that here.
Yeah. It's like at the beginning, before the opening credits, you see Liam Neeson like blowing a safe. And that's like literally all you see.
Yeah.
You see him like plastering over a wall later when he's explaining how he did it. It's like, oh.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, it's
like he took more effort into fucking repainting the motherfucker than he did blowing the safe.
Yeah.
So.
I do kind of love, I don't know why, this scene is not particularly great, but I did kind of love the scene where there's a chase and he's in like the van that's like a cupcake van and he's like hiding and then he like rams into Jai Courtney's car.
Yeah. That was fun.
It was. I was like, ooh, I want more of this.
Yeah.
That would have been great.
So basically you're telling me I didn't miss very much.
No. Except for Kate Walsh, but you can watch her in better things elsewhere.
That's true too.
She really is always wonderful. All right, Dave, do we have any other?
No, I think we covered it. I think we did.
Jai Courtney, what are you doing?
Yeah, I know. I saw him in a movie not long ago. I've mentioned this on the show before where he was good. I was like, oh my God, Jai Courtney was good. And then I saw this movie.
Yes.
And was like, oh, that was an anomaly. Got it.
I also thought Liam Neeson was going to stop doing these kinds of action movies, but I'm not mad at him that he has not stopped because I do kind of love that this is his wheelhouse now.
Yeah. I mean, he should try to find some that are, not like Taken, but as good as Taken.
Agreed.
But also, I would even settle for The Gray at this point, and I really didn't like The Gray. So
that says something. Yeah. More fun. I wish this had more fun.
Exactly.
All right. Well, let's talk about our final film, which we all saw, which is also part of Amazon's Welcome to the Blumhouse series, which is Evil Eye.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go out on a limb.
Oh, okay.
I kind of dug it.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. Well, I just like the idea that there was this, there's this young Indian American woman who's, doesn't want to like do the arranged marriage thing, even though her mom is gently pressuring her to. And then you've got her mother who's, lived in the United States a long time, but she and her dad moved back to India. I just kind of like the idea that there's this older Indian woman who's kind of your main character.
Yeah.
I just thought that was kind of cool.
Sarita Choudhury.
Like you never see that.
You're absolutely right. And Sarita Choudhury is a great actress, and I thought it was great to see her here.
Yeah. Yeah, and she, this is the kind of part where it sounds like the character is crazy on paper. And if you had like a lesser performer doing this, it would just I feel like it would be too big or it would go off the rails, but she's just like very matter of fact about everything. She's like, no, this thing happened to me where this guy tried to beat the shit out of me and kill me, and I killed him instead, and he's been reborn as this dude who you're dating now. And for some reason, even though the entire time that's actually what happened, you can understand why the daughter would be like, that's weird. But, I'm sitting there going like, you got to listen to your mother. Listen to your mother, young lady.
Listen to her. She knows things. She's trying to help you.
She knows the evil eye. She knows you're not wearing that bracelet.
I know. Yeah. Why wasn't she wearing the bracelet? It's a cute bracelet.
All you got to do is wear the bracelet.
Well,
all you got to do.
So that's one of the things. So I did like this movie too, Dave. I dig that it's really is the mother's story. It's her story.
Yeah.
It's this, I think, a great cultural horror movie. I like the concept of integrating the evil eye and Indian kind of legends and mythology, and also the concept of reincarnation. I love that those are all part of a horror movie. I think that's really awesome.
Agreed.
But I really wish that the evil eye came up more / had more to do with the story other than the name. Like we see the eye in a pendant that the mother wears and a bracelet that the daughter wears. But I think we assume that once the daughter takes it off, she's not under his protection. But even when the mom still has the necklace, the dad doesn't throw it away. It doesn't seem to offer her that much more protection against the villain in the movie, who's the reincarnated version of her ex-boyfriend. So I wish there was more integration of that. But otherwise, I enjoyed this movie. I like the mother-daughter relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I love how at the end they team up to defeat him. And and the end when they're laying together there in the hospital bed, I think that's just incredibly sweet, and
It was sweet.
I love the relationship with these two characters, and I love that they went through some shit, but then the daughter realized that her mom was right, and she does have her best interests at heart, and they do care about each other. And so, I don't know, that left me with warm fuzzies at the end of the day.
I want to go back to what you said about the evil eye, and I actually do think the evil eye is an incredibly prominent part of the film. Not so much from the protection angle, because you're right, it is kind of brought up, but then feels like it's kind of dropped. But the whole point, as far as why she's so worried about her daughter in the first place and why she thinks this guy has been reincarnated, is because he cursed her. Like, when they were struggling on the bridge and, before she killed him. And so the curse is the evil eye. That is someone giving you the evil eye. So that is what kind of jettisons the whole, or catalyzes rather, the whole story. So I would argue the evil eye is very prominent and integral to the story, but not the protection element of it so much.
Got it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but I also agree with you, Evan, that I think the strongest part, I think Sarita Choudhury's performance is really, really what anchors the film. But I think that the mother-daughter relationship between the two women is so great and so lovely to see. And I agree with you. I actually wish the final shot had been the two of them in the hospital bed, because that to me is really the strength of the film. It's like, we don't fucking need to hear, the coding and then see a baby and it's like, oh, he's coming back again. Like, no, that's just dumb. Yeah. Like, we don't need that. I wish it had ended on them, because they really are the heart of the story and are the best part of the film.
Right. And they've come up with the plan at that point. They've said to each other, no matter what happens, this guy might keep coming back, but you're just going to train your daughter and she's going to train her daughter, and we're just going to keep kicking this guy's ass.
Yeah.
I will say that the ending of that, it is kind of great that, the mother is like, this isn't your fault. This isn't any woman's fault. Like it's kind of extrapolated beyond just her story and her daughter's story into kind of being all women who are, domestic violence victims and survivors, that, this is never your fault. And, these guys are everywhere, because they fucking are, and they suck. But earlier in the film, there were kind of some things, and I wish I could remember them now, but there were some things that the mother said that I'm kind of like, ugh. Like, she's talking about like she says something to the effect of, like, when she's talking to her husband about how this is this is karma, like this is what happens, like this is what I get for, this. And I'm like, whoa, you did not fucking deserve to be abused and have this guy come back and terrorize you. So I'm glad that it kind of was, rectified by the end. But yeah, there's some moments I'm kind of like, not quite.
I'm with you.
I like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I do also agree that I love that this is, an Indian and Indian American cast. The, directors are, Ilan and Rajiv Dasani. They're either Indian or Indian American, as well as it's written by Madhuri Shakar based on her, I think it was an Audible story or play or something. But anyway, she wrote it and it's adapted from that. So yeah, so I like that we're getting, more, diversity and inclusivity within, horror films. It's always great.
Agree.
Speaking to...
I got nothing else.
Well, I was going to say, Megan, you mentioned when we were talking about Nocturne that you think across the board that these films in the Welcome to the Blumhouse series could use better production values. I
Oh,
wanted to
yes.
know what you thought of the cinematography in this movie, because I thought it was pretty good. I actually really enjoyed the color palettes, especially when they were in India, and I love the use of bright colors, especially inside the everything kind of had like a very warm tone to it, and I found that really noticeable, and I really enjoyed the cinematography in this movie.
Sure. I mean, I liked the color palettes too. I mean, I think for in certain ways what I'm looking for in cinematography isn't just like, oh, this looks pretty, which this certainly like it did in many ways. But yeah, like there, obviously like the camera can, obviously I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know, but like I'm kind of like also looking for how does it serve a purpose and like how, is it evoking a certain mood or feel. So yeah, I mean the cinematography I thought was okay. I thought it was fine. But yeah, again, I think there are some. I still think there are some production issues. Like I think there's some issues with lighting. There's something about all four of these films that feel. And I know this is going to sound weird because it's released on Amazon, but they don't feel like films. They feel almost like they look almost like TV movies in a way. There's something about them that I like. It's kind of like, I know this is going to sound maybe weird, but when you watch a soap opera, it has a very different look in the way it's shot and filmed and lit and the camera lenses used than other lenses used in film. And so there's something about it that kind of feels like it's taking me out of a regular film, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think with Evil Eye, my biggest problem was not the cinematography or the production values as far as like the set design or special effects or anything like that. It was actually the acting. I thought that the guy who played, I cannot think of his name now, whatever his name is,
I think it was
Sandeep,
Sandeep,
yes,
right?
the reincarnated guy.
Mhm.
I thought he was terrible, like awful, just
Yeah,
really,
he
really
was not good.
bad. So
He was not good.
no, he was just, yeah, he was bad. And there were some other kind of like secondary characters, like minor characters, like her friends that I didn't think were very good. But, the mother's great. I thought the daughter was okay. Could have been better in some parts, was good, really, really good. Like she was really good at the end and she was really good in the climax, like really good. And I thought the father was great too. But yeah, but for me,
I
the
really
acting
enjoyed the
was,
father.
yeah, but to me, the acting was uneven more. So that to me was probably the biggest hurdle issue on this film for me.
Mhm. Yeah, I see what you're saying about these films as a whole. One of the things that I felt watching them is that although I've enjoyed the 3 films that I've watched, I found them still slightly lacking in a kind of tension that I would expect for a horror movie or a thriller or whatever you wanna call them, They're even though they're fine, I still feel like there is an element of tension missing, and maybe that's because it feels more small screen than big screen, I don't know, but that's something I feel like I've noticed watching these.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear that. For again, and this is just for me personally. Like, I don't need. This is gonna sound maybe weird, but like, because I know some people think like, oh, if it's horror, it has to be scary or it has to be tense. Like, and I actually don't think that at all. Like, I think horror can be funny or tragic or whatever. It doesn't need to be tense or scary. And I actually think most of these. I shouldn't say most of these because there's only 4, but some of them are not horror. Like like The Lie, like that we saw last week. That to me is not horror at all. Um,
Right.
yeah, but I know what you mean. I like for me, it's not a tension element that's missing, but there's something, and I've been trying to like nail it. And I think for me, I like the closest I come is like the production value, and maybe it's a raised stakes level. Which again, maybe if there was tighter writing, tighter pacing, not yeah. But I know what you're saying, and yeah, there's definitely something that needs to be like ramped
Yeah.
up.
I know what you're saying. You're saying they need to be better. That's what you're saying.
A certain je ne sais quoi.
Yes, correct. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like I think with each of, well, no, not with each of them, because there was a couple that or one that I'm like, nope. Definitely one that's like, I'm a nope with. But yeah, but with the others, like they all have really good ideas and they're really interesting. And I do love that of the 4 films, they're all from marginalized filmmakers. They're all from either people of color or women of color. And that's great. I kind of wish that the studio this particular studio would put more money behind these filmmakers on a larger scale. But at least they're funding, diverse filmmakers in general. So I guess it's good. But I still cannot get over that Jason Blumhouse is still the person who years ago was like, oh, there are no women who want to direct horror. Like, what?
Yeah.
I didn't know
Yes. Yes. He said that when he was called to task about why there were no upcoming women directors on the slate for their studio. He's like, oh, well, there really aren't any women who want to direct horror. Like, dude, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I've never forgotten that.
Yeah, broaden your horizons, man. Jeez.
Right.
He did.
He did. He
did,
which is great. I just, like I said, I kind of wish they would have, maybe bigger budgets or something.
Yeah, I agree.
So do we have anything else we want to say about Evil Eye?
I was disappointed by how quickly the villain confirmed that he was the reincarnated guy.
Yes, I agree with that.
I wish that he buried the lead for a little while longer, or that there was more of a dance, and it wasn't just the mom goes to America to see her daughter and see him, and then just stuck in the situation where she knows he's the bad guy and has to find a way to signal to her daughter that that's what's going on. Although I love the touch with the earrings about how he got the same, what were they, sapphire earrings?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was cool.
Yes.
But that was an element
Indeed.
of the film that I feel like kind of stunted the climax, is him right away just owning up to the fact that he was the reincarnated guy.
Totally. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, yeah, because there's kind of like, he hints about it sort of, but like, yeah. I also kind of wish we had seen him, and we do kind of see it, but I wish we'd also seen him be a little bit more controlling. Because like he's clearly being like he's clearly trying to rush the relationship, and he's clearly trying to be like, oh, well, move in with me, or oh, I'll fund your apartment. Like clearly, like you can tell like what's happening. Like this is clearly a manipulation, but it's like, and I know they're trying to play with, oh, well, maybe he's not a bad guy. Maybe mom's just overreacting. Like, like, oh, ladies, they're, I hate this ableist term, but oh, they're crazy, but like,
Mm-hmm.
Well, Megan, I have to break in here and just say things are crazy. God.
I know, Dave. What was I thinking?
If history has proved anything.
What was I thinking? Yeah. But yeah, like, like they're clearly trying to play with those expectations, which I get. But at the same time, it's like, oh, he's kind of just nice funding her life.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I kind of wish they'd show him be, a little more creepy controlling. Although there are certainly elements, but anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, his creepiness was like, he was so nonchalant about it.
I know.
That it was like, I mean, it would have been creepy if he would have pressed her harder.
Right?
But he was like, you could just get your own place and I could pay for it and you could write.
Okay, that sounds kind of like the
she's
dream.
Like, yeah, all right, cool. And then, you see the gears turning in his mind. He's like, oh, I could have been evil then. But no, she agreed too quickly.
Well, I think it's also hard. And granted, this film goes hard in the paint in a, very different way. But it's hard when you have a film that is also looking at domestic violence in such a brutal way with The Invisible Man earlier this year. It's hard not to kind of make comparisons, and that film is just ruthless and relentless. So, it's great that they didn't necessarily go that way because you can do it differently. But yeah. But anyway, I think that just I think it falls on the shoulders of that guy. He just was not a good actor in this film.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you on that. Yeah. He was the weakest link. Goodbye.
You are the weakest link. Goodbye. Yes, he was dead weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, not
I don't know why. That was funny to me.
I was actually cracking myself up too, so I don't know what's going on with us that we're laughing at that. All right. Evan, did you have any more you wanted to say?
No, I think I finally covered off on this. I think it was funny watching this movie after a few months ago binging the Indian matchmaking series on Netflix. This definitely felt like a great horror scenario derived from that setup.
Oh my God. Thank you, Evan. I'm actually, I knew I could count on you. I knew there was more because there was something rolling around in my head that I knew I wanted to say, and that was it. After seeing that show, and so obviously, I knew obviously about arranged marriages, but I did not know that astrological charts were such a thing. And so after watching that show, like when she's like bringing his chart and like talking about the birthdays and auspicious, signs and days, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know what this is all about. Thank you.
I'm just amazed no one told her she needed to be more flexible, like they kept saying on the Indian matchmaking show.
Well, those people, some of them were ridiculous, but yes.
Yeah.
But that was kind of an interesting touch, obviously, because, it's clearly trying to subvert your expectations, because when she brings the chart, you're expecting like, oh, it's going to be a bad thing. And the guy's like, no, it's great. They're a perfect match. But then I was suspicious. I was like, did somebody pay this guy off? Because the family was like super rich. I'm like, did somebody pay the astrologer to say that they were a great match? All right, well, let's do a recap, and let's also talk about where people can find these films. So, Mortuary Collection, that's going to be on Shudder. And would you guys say, don't see it? See it?
I don't know. I mean, you can watch worse horror anthologies, but why would you want to? So
I kind of agree. I mean, I can't recommend somebody watch half of a good movie.
Right.
Unless you just skip to that and, that short. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the best short is the first one. So yeah, skip it. It's too bad.
All right. And the second one, Nocturne, you can see that now on Amazon Prime. And Evan, would you say see it?
I would. Yeah. I thought it was good.
I would say see it too, if for no other reason, because Sydney Sweeney is so great in it. So yes. So I would actually say see it as well. And then Honest Thief, you can see that on video on demand, and it very well may be playing in theaters, select theaters. I think it is. Dave, would you recommend this movie?
I mean, sure.
You would?
Yeah. I mean,
what? I'm shocked.
Well, this is the thing that I've come to realize about the latter-day Liam Neeson movies. There's just something about them that's kind of charming, even when they're bad, because it's just Liam. He's so earnest.
He really, really is.
And he really, even though he has to know this movie's kind of shitty, he's like, I accepted a paycheck, I said yes, and I will play the motherfucker out of this. So that's kind of like why. And it's also funny to see Kate Walsh be in a different movie.
Yeah, I was going to say skip this, and I'm still kind of going to say skip this, but you're making a very compelling argument.
Thank you.
I would say don't pay to see this, or maybe don't rush out to see this, but like if, you're seeing this on a streaming service that you already, pay for, then watch it.
Yeah.
And then Evil Eye, which also is on Amazon Prime right now. Would we say see this? Would we recommend it? Would we say skip it?
I'd say see it.
Yeah, me too. I'm in the C category on this one.
Sure.
I mean, if you want to torture yourself, fine. But
Yeah, I would say the mother-daughter relationship is good, and their performances are good enough that yes, I would say see it.
Cool.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Spoiler Piece Theater. First, I want to give a huge, huge thank you to our amazing editor, Otto Clammer. Thank you, Otto, for everything you do. You make us sound great week after week. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
You can find us anywhere you get podcasts. We are everywhere. And you can also find us at our website, spoilerpiece.com. You can find us everywhere on social media. We are Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook. We're at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. So please come say hello, follow us. You can also reach out to us via email at spoilerpiece@gmail.com. You can also call us
862-21-PEACE.
Leave us a message. Tell us what you think. Did you like these movies? Did you not like them? Which episodes did you like? What do you want us to talk about? Or just say, hey, we look forward to it.
Do you have a food question you want us to debate in our cold open?
Oh,
yeah.
We love to debate food if you hadn't noticed. Love it. We love debating food probably about as much as we love debating movies. So, yes, reach out to us. Tell us about food. And if you like the show, please rate and review us by going to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece. It will take you to your preferred platform in order to rate us. We also would really appreciate it if you wanted to just go to Apple Podcasts and rate us there. We always appreciate that. That really helps us out. And if you really, really like the show, like really like us, then why don't you join us over on Patreon and become one of our patrons? We have 3 different tiers. We have $1 for $5 a month. You get to listen to weekly exclusive bonus episodes. This week, we took a patron's choice, which was Troll, the 1986 fantasy movie. And that was a very fun, lively conversation. And we also do monthly polls. And if you want to recommend movies, like Troll, or maybe not like Troll, then you can do the $10 tier a month, and then you get to tell us what movie you want us to watch and talk about each month, which is pretty cool. And so we want to thank all of our amazing patrons.
Yep. We want to say a huge thank you to Bill Scahan, Sean Pensionar, Christopher Jensen, Bob Chipman, Charlie Nash, Davida Margolin, Zach Pigeon, Chris Wilkinson, Elisa, Max Colville, Shona Glasgow, Rory Glenn, Shelley M. McCaskill, Mike, Lord of the Sith, Dee Dee Crimmins, and Shauna Harris.
Thank you, patrons.
Thank you.
We really appreciate all of your support. And thank you for listening. We appreciate that too. My name is Megan Kearns. I'm a contributing writer to Edge Media Network, a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. You can follow me on Twitter at OpinionessWorld, and you can also follow me on Instagram and Letterboxd at TheOpinioness.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies sometimes for Salt Lake City Weekly. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd as Dave Sees Movies.
And my name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair for the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living. You can follow me on Twitter and on Letterboxd as Real Recon.
Thank you
See
so
you next
much.
week, patrons. Wait, did I say see you next week, patrons? I meant everybody. Sorry. Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone. See you next week.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.